and I had spoken with this with Dr. Murray. From reading and from what he's saying, biblical marriage is just biblical marriage. Whether the man makes the decision to have one wife or two wives, it's holy marriage. A lot of people, like, you wake up to the truth, but you don't know the truth to salvation. Mm-hmm. All you know is what you know that they're taught is not right, but you don't have nowhere to go to. Mm-hmm. So it was just years, reading on your own, still in the world, knowing that now what I know now, that had I transitioned, crossed over, I would have gone to hell. Mm-hmm. Thinking that I was a Christian because one day I did accept him as my Lord and Savior, things like that, baptized, but I would have gone to hell because I was blinded to these things. This book was sealed to me. It was just sealed to me. So then through the years, I went back into the church. And it was almost as if the Father said, you're not going to learn your lesson. You're not going to learn, are you? Because each time I would go back in, it got worse when I would see the strong delusion. And I would see just the novice of these ministers. And just a little that I was reading, it was, and I didn't know much, but it was way surpassed that. So it's like they minister to keep the people dumb and blind, because it's all about money. That's all about money, all about prophetic utterances, all about charismatic, And if you check all of these things, they all last for a period of time. Then the people, they just start going into place else. So I just began to just read about different things. And then the Father started showing me about holidays, dietary laws. And I remember this book. That's when I was on Facebook. There was a book that was titled, they were promoting, called Unmasking Christianity. So I ordered this book. And in this book, it was talking about the Passover. And it says, you're not supposed to do the Passover but one time a year. And I was going, wow, not every first Sunday? It talked about the different laws in this country, that the tyranny that we're under, the strong delusion. Even Americans, we are under a strong delusion that we're free. And we're not. And the court system, the different flags that they have in the court systems for everything. And it talked about marriage license. It talked about birth certificates when we are born, how we become like traded on the stock market, all of that. So I just began to read, and I can't even find that. Certain strange things start happening because I can't even find that book anymore. And the man, he signed it for me, and I can't, find it. Right. So then here comes this other thing on. It was Torah. I'm trying. Passion for Truth Ministries. So there was this young man, and he was talking on dietary laws. He was talking about the holidays. And he had this video. It was called Identity Crisis. Identity crisis, right. And his name was, should I say his name?
Sure.
You're right, Jim Staley.
Okay.
All right, Jim Staley. And I ordered this YouTube, this video, and he began to teach. He said, you know, everyone who was around Mount Sinai, he said that was Israel. Everyone, you know, was Israel. Then some things now I know that wasn't true, but the Father started taking key things out from that to really hit me. And when the time I finished, I went, oh my gosh, I'm a Jew. You know, that's what, you know, I said, I'm a Jew. And I was so, you know, just so happy because now and then I really started. And this man really had some good pointers, and they would live stream every Shabbat, but they would live stream in the evening. So I was, you know, following him on that. And all of a sudden, one night, he made this announcement. He goes, we prayed over this, and we're going back to Christian roots. And I was so devastated. I was hurt because and I say, Father, what am I to do? I can't go back to this. I can't go back to this. And there was this one man, I never know him, but he had a name on Facebook, working in the vineyard. That was just his name. So, and he was telling me about he live streamed with Jim Staley, and I was confused because I thought I should still be going to church.
Okay.
And that's when he told me about the scripture in Revelation that you need to come out of her. So I said, okay. So he stopped going to church. And I remember when he made that announcement, and I inboxed him, I said, did you watch last night? He goes, yep. That's all he said. And he goes, what do you think? And I replied, I said, I don't think that's right. He goes, you're right. And I said, you know what, by the way, I said, I've started listening to this man named Pastor Dowell. And he said, Pastor Dowell is more closer to the truth than Jim Staley. And y'all is my witness, that whole Facebook page was deleted. His page. I never heard anything about him.
Wow.
At all.
So you just found Pastor Dowell?
Yes, just for hearing, you know, this young lady was telling me about, she said, our pastor, a lot of people say that they follow Pastor Dowell, but they don't. Yeah. This was one of those, you know, said he grows his own food and they have their own community. You know, come to Fresh. I don't think she's ever been here. Never heard from her either. So I start tuning into Pastor Dowell.
Wow. So you've been with it ever since?
Yes.
It's like 2011, you said?
12, 13, yes, 12.
So when you think, so basically, you know, we were talking about your childhood, just growing up. You guys didn't grow up in the church. Did you grow up in the church? You said you grew up in the church. Yes. You grew up in church. Your mom, you was pretty much being the last child. It felt like you were single by a single mom and everything. And did you go off to college? Did you go off to college and did you continue in the Christian faith? Did you do your own thing?
When people go off to college, they do their own thing and they continue in the Christian faith.
Okay.
So it's all the same. It's wickedness. Florida A&M University.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right. So.
Did you finish? Did you?
Yes, sir.
What was your major?
Business teacher education.
Okay. So you majored in that. You 4 years, 5 years? I don't know. How,
4 years.
4 years. You got a bachelor.
Yes, sir.
A bachelor degree. Then. So then during that time you were going to church. Was it?
We would visit churches.
In that area, or did you go back to the church you grew up in?
I never went back to the church I grew up from, and that was one of the things. A lot of when we left, we wanted to get away from that. Okay. Yes, sir.
So you just went to the churches that?
Yes.
Okay. What church? What kind of church was those at the time? Same type or?
Any church that had a good choir.
Okay, good choir. Okay. Yes. Now, were you on the choir team or?
When the church that I was actually a member of, I was.
Okay, but not in college.
No.
Okay. Did a lot of your classmates go to this church that you went to, or are you just on your own mostly?
Well, when I say we went to church, it would maybe be like one Sunday out of 6 months or something like that. It was.
So it wasn't consistent.
No.
Okay. So you went in. You kind of had a subpar, church experience going to college, but you mostly was focused on your degree. And I mean, were you what kind of person, what kind of student were you in college? Were you a student? Were you a partier? You know how. I mean,
I was a partier.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So even during those parties, you still had a sense that I should go to church at least once in a blue moon.
Yes, so it's kind of like make atonement for our sins.
Okay.
That's what all college students.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So then when you left college, you graduated. Tell me what was that life like when it comes to your relationship with God or lack of? I just don't know. But when you left college, tell me how was faith?
Well, it's sort of reality begins to set in because now you're an adult. You're on your own.
Okay.
You start to think about a lot of things. You start to think about, your soul. And what happens is that a lot of pressure is put on people about finding a church home. And especially if you, what they say, get saved, well, you need to find a church home to get into. So a lot of us went, looking for, a place. And we never wanted to go back to the old tradition. This is when contemporary had set in.
Okay.
So that's what we were looking for. And a lot of them say, I want a place, where it's family. You can have sisters and brothers and you pray and it's almost like, the enemy would give you everything you wish for. So in comes this woman that I was telling someone about that. They say, it has a lot of young people, this lady pastor and,
This is where you find
Yes.
Okay.
So you get there and you have all of these people your age, a lot of youth,
Yep.
A lot of young men. So you have people that have the motives. You got single women, you got all these young men, and the young men just single women. So a lot of it, is like a combustible explosion. So
Did you ever get married or?
Yes, I did.
Did you meet him in college or in the church?
It was after college and after church.
Okay. Oh, and after
Yes.
church. Okay. Well, you gotta explain.
Right. So this is the funny part about it. So, the man I married was his pastor's first cousin. They were two sisters' children.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And he was born, brought up Baptist, military.
Okay.
And, going back to all this Christianity, it's like we were never taught how to be women, how to be wives. We knew nothing about creation roles. And the same as men, they know nothing about creation, operating in the role as a son, a father, a husband. A lot of times, we're taught to operate as a son, men for life, where you're just dedicated, everything is to that mother. And even with daughters, we're only taught how to be obedient daughters to that same mother. So we still have that Jezebel control over us. We're still doing everything to please this woman. The men aren't taught how to be providers. When you get married, you're taught to be equal. You go out and work. He goes out and work. We work for things. Success was based on the home, the car. If you in the church, if you were like the biggest tither or whatever, then you kind of like shot up to the head of the. But none of that sustained us. Still, none of that sustained. Just stopped going to church, everything all together, just all together. One thing led to another because I was never taught how to be right, the woman. And then I thought about, I can't say that he was a bad husband, but then I thought about it in Apocrypha, it only made sense because his lot was a wicked woman, and that was me. So.
When did you come to the conclusion that you were a wicked woman at that time, or is it just more like after you look back on it?
When I came into this ministry.
Okay, came into the ministry. Okay.
Yes.
But at the time,
I thought that I was a good.
you thought you was a good woman.
Yes.
Now, what was your relationship like with your? Is it your ex or?
Ex.
Okay. Ex.
Yes, sir.
So, what was your relationship like? Like, I mean, were you in control? Was it a matriarch? I mean, tell me how that relationship looked like. How did you guys function?
Yes, matriarchal rule, and I thought that I had to move into the matriarchal rule because he wasn't in the patriarchal rule, because he had never. And a lot of men, when they're not in the, especially American men and African American men, they have no idea of patriarchy. We just weren't brought up under patriarchy.
Let me say it another way, just for the audience to know. So, and because I know what you're saying. So basically, and I just was talking to a sister today, actually, on the land. She was saying, well, my husband don't know how to lead, so I feel like I have to lead. Is that kind of,
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you say patriarch, since he didn't know how to do patriarch, you had to.
Yes.
Is that?
Take over.
Okay. And so why did you feel like you had to take over? For at that time, with that mindset?
Mm-hmm. Well, because.
Your Christian mindset, too.
Yes. Okay. Because things were not getting done. In the natural, bills were not getting paid, things around the house, even just trash not being taken out. So, but I think that what happened, the more I became in that matriarchal, it's like, I don't need to, she can do everything. And that's what happens. Mm-hmm. So you get kind of, fed up with that, because then they start letting you, then you begin operating in both roles.
Did you like it at the time? I mean, when you were in it, did you like it? I mean, I know you don't like it now, but did you ever say it was comfortable?
Oh no,
you didn't like that.
No, not at all.
Even at that time, you was aware that this is not what you wanted.
Right.
Why? Why did you not like it?
Because there was no sense of protection, no sense of safety. You're talking about situations when you're coming home, and I mean, I was working hard. Believe it or not, he was working hard. He was military. And, when you come home, when both people are going to work, when you're thinking that he's do certain things, like paying the rent, and you come home and you see this like eviction notices. Okay, so what's going on? What's happening? And, you could never get an explanation. So here, I put on the Jezebel, okay, it's got to be done. I'm going to do it. So then you just start charging. And then now I can understand the role of Ahab. Oh, she can do it. She can take care of it. She can, I don't have to. And he became very content and complacent in that role.
And you didn't like it at that time?
No.
So then how did you end up discovering, so you're in a situation where you're in control of the marriage. I mean, clearly you're in control, but you don't like the control, it sounds like, even though it's like a love-hate relationship, but then now you're going, how did you come into Pastor Dow? How did you discover him? And when you discovered him, or how it came to you, how did you feel about him?
Well, I came into Pastor Dow, it was years after I got a divorce. Okay. I was single, And it's funny that you asked.
Did you have children with him?
No, sir.
No children, okay.
So I felt kind of guilty. I say, Father, what if I would have come to the truth, in this marriage? And it's kind of fearful because I would have had to get myself together. So it was, years after that. And then now I can look back on that situation and not be bitter about it, because through this, I saw my own wickedness and everything that I contributed to that situation.
Did you divorce him, or he divorced you?
I divorced him.
You left him?
Yes, sir.
So you left him, and then you find Pastor Dow years later.
Yes.
How did you find him? I mean, everybody has a story, but I just want you to tell me how did you find him?
Well, just from hearing, when I just started listening to him, and when I started listening to him, what I learned.
Were you looking something on Google? Did you Google him?
Yes, it was. That's when I was actually, I think, on Facebook.
Oh, okay. You was on Facebook. Right. So you found, okay.
And I was listening to this other minister. I didn't know that he was a Hebrew Israelite. It's an inside joke between Pastor and I. I'm not going to call this minister's name, but Pastor know who I'm talking about. But it was this YouTube video had circulated on this certain minister. And he was talking about women's roles and everything. And we were passing around and we just laughed our heads off because he was so blunt, so brutal. So we were just laughing. I would send it around to everybody and we would laugh. And then the more I listened to him, I said, you know what? This man is, telling the truth.
So you were laughing because you thought that what he was saying was funny? It wasn't like...
Well, he was comical too. Right. So you just remind yourself to ask Pastor about this man. He'll show you some things,
But he to talk about anything.
Yes. Okay. So, but this, but Pastor was different. When I came across Pastor, I said, he kind of talked like that other man with the boldness and but it was something, I said, this is an intelligent, something's going on here. This man has, the intellect, and that's what really appealed to me about him, the intellect from him, and I would begin to listen. And then when he started talking on women and just, coming, out of Christianity, you're coming out of the world. And you hear him talking about the women and you're like, ha, 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 ha. Look how you talk about, women. Ha, 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 ha. And look how those women dress and how they, ha, 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 ha. Silly, hen cackling, sounds just like those chickens out there in that chicken coop. But then when he began to talk, that's when I understood marriage. And, you almost just want to fall on your face while just repent just for being a wicked woman from the day I just broke my mother's womb. Just born into wickedness, raised into wickedness. I had no respect for men. We reverence women more. Like I said, that mother role or whatever, just not honorable. Just not just to him as a pastor, but just as a man in general. And that's why I just got all of that from him. And then when he started opening the scriptures, because that book was sealed. And here's the thing about it, Brother Kabir. All of this time when I would have thought that I just bragged, I'm a student of the word. I was just a Bible reader. But all of those years, why is it that I never saw the word Hebrew Israelite in the Bible and never saw the word Christian? But that's what I was claiming to be. I never, saw that. The 10, they say it's 10 commandments, but all of those books of Moses, why, these men, Moses, this white-haired, bearded man, you just see him with a stone up in the top. Why? I never heard about that. Why, that was never open to me until, the word says, faith come by hearing. I had to hear it. I was reading the Bible, and faith comes by hearing. I had to have a preacher to break that, open that up to me.
So did you ever think that Pastor Dow, obviously, people see Pastor Dow different when they first initially see him as, arrogant or prideful, but you using words like he was bold, he was serious-minded, he was did you ever see some of the things that people say about Pastor Dow being?
Never. That's, when I first saw him, he was, one of the things I saw, he was doing a baptism at the creek. And I say, Father, please let me get there. Let that man baptize me as a Hebrew Israelite. So I always tell Pastor, I'm like, and I was reading about the women who would follow the Messiah. Just I'm always there because he reveals salvation unto me.
Hallelujah. So let me I would say this is the $1 million question. So Pastor Dow, obviously you got in 2012, you said?
Yes.
About 2012. Now, this is, I think at that time, he started coming about polygyny. What did you think about when he started preaching about polygyny? As a woman, how did that impact, how did that affect you when he was talking about that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I had spoken with this with Dr. Murray. From reading and from what he's saying, biblical marriage is just biblical marriage. Whether the man makes the decision to have one wife or two wives, it's holy marriage. You look at, Isaac, he only had one wife, but that was a biblical marriage because you had two Hebrew Israelites. I just had to get the marriage part right first with that. And then with polygyny, coming out of that feminist mindset, whether I wanted, because I knew it was the truth, whether I understood it or not, it was the truth. Then I began to, do research and reading on it. And then I saw the warfare that had been played against us as Israelites by making us a, monogamous society. It's like that cut our numbers in half, and what a mighty nation we could have been. And the strength is always in the men. And then we think about we're going to be missing out or lacking something because, you have another wife or sister wife or whatever, that you're going to be getting less. But Bill, it's all about the man, all about the patriarch, right?
So you didn't have a problem. I mean, and you're very comfortable with that
yes.
biblical. So as we wrap up here, so when you think about Straightway, how has Straightway impacted you, either positive or negative? You've been in it, for over 5 years. How has it impacted your life?
It was, they always say that people don't change. I can say that I changed. When I look back, that person that's dead, that old Gbaja is dead. This woman now is somebody totally different. It has impacted me, everything. And one of the things I want to say where it greatly impacted me, now I know what it is to be blessed when you give to a righteous man, because you think in Christianity how people give all of that money for years and they struggle, don't have nothing or whatever. But now the Father has taught me what it is to be a joyful giver. That's one of the main impacts. I have been blessed beyond, yes, sir.
So with the pastor, with this ministry, people will say, now you're obviously an educated woman. You went to school for 4 years, went to Florida A&M, right?
Yes.
Yes. And but people will say that the women here are brain dead. Now you obviously been in this ministry long enough, and not every woman has an education like you, but you're one of them. I mean, what do you have to say to just the people out there, like how do you know you're not being deceived by Pastor? I mean, how do you know he's not just the next, typical Christian pastor that just, that just trying to get people, just keep butts in the seats and.
Right. Well, when I was educated, that's when I was deceived. The Father has opened my eyes to this, because you can see Pastor doesn't care about butts in the seat. There's been purging in great numbers. That he doesn't care about that, because if he did, he wouldn't preach the way he did. He would not speak truth to power. So, he's not that type of man.
But the peace that came was from the Father, because it was the blessing of keeping his Sabbaths and then also keeping his commandments on top of that. And since we were all trying to do as the Father told us to do, blessings come from that. And so we've been blessed with peace.